hot rods and mean machines, custom cars and bikes, street rods and classic muscle. These are the cars that make heads turn and hearts pump. From the 1930s, lovers of speed and style have been putting their own stamp on the automotive world, turning wrecks into races, cars into custom creations, taking the humble motor vehicle to the pinnacle of performance. Hot Rods and Mean Machines takes a look into this alternative world of rolling wonder. A world where passion precedes cost. Finish favours finances. Performance is worth the price. Where style is everything. Ever since the wheel was invented, humans have had a fascination with rolling transport. And why not? It got you and your stuff from A to B with the minimum of fuss. From the 1670s to the 1800s, inventors across the world struggled to power carriages with everything from steam to electricity. But it wasn't until the late 1800s that Carl Benz presented the first practical internal combustion engine in Germany. Momentum built from there, with the first large-scale automotive production line opened in the USA by Oldsmobile in 1902. Henry Ford took this idea and expanded it to the moving production line, eventually producing one Model T every 15 minutes. The only thing slowing the process was drying the paint. As Japan black would dry faster than any other, this was the only colour offered to customers. And that's where the whole business of producing cars really took off. Manufacturers across the globe started building all kinds of cars using the moving production line method, and still do today. And that's how we see the majority of cars now. Products of large corporations, rolling out of the factory one after the other, all looking the same, sounding the same, performing the same. And anybody can buy one from your local car dealer. But what if you want something a little different? What if you're the kind of driver who wants to stand out from the crowd, walk to the beat of a different drum? Or just the kind of car fanatic that prefers loads of power under the hood, but the classic lines of yesteryear? Thankfully, there is a place for you in the world. You can call yourself a restorer, a racer, a custom car creator, a mean machine mechanic, a hot rodder, a greaser, a street rodder, or an artist. And cars or bikes can be art, as we're about to show you. When most people think of hot rods, they think of modified Model T Fords, and for good reason. The Model T was the biggest selling car in the world in the early 1900s. The Ford Motor Company was producing up to 300,000 cars a year by 1914. And by the end of its days in 1927, more than 18 million Model Ts had rolled off Henry Ford's ingenious production line. Even before the car had finished production, a thriving industry of modifications and accessories for the humble Model T had grown into a multi-million-dollar business. As it turns out, people do want something different, and you can see why. Model Ts were in plentiful supply on the used car market and ripe for hot rodding. The first car subculture was born in the US and quickly travelled across the globe. With style came speed, and most modified cars didn't stop at mere body mods. Performance was a key element of the hot rod scene, and races, both legal and illegal, were part of the movement. What was once a frowned-upon subculture had become a rolling art form. The Model T hot rods became symbols of cool in the 70s thanks to some high-profile appearances in US TV. This is a perfect example of a Model T tricked to the max. level of finish on this spectacular roadster is the pinnacle of the hot rod fanatic. It's unlikely this Ford has seen the open road any time recently. Based on the 1923 open top, this is what you can expect from a T-bucket hot rod. Under the hood, if it had one, is the popular Chevrolet Mighty Mouse 4.6 litre or 238 cubic inch V8 motor. It gets its nickname from the cartoon series of the time. The engine was actually called the Turbofire V8, which is still pretty cool. This power plant began production in 1957 and became a favourite amongst stock racers and hot rodders due to its compact size and availability. The Mighty Mouse is still available, with over 19 million of these engines having been produced. The Model T is an automatic. Hanging off the small block V8 engine is a turbo 400 3-speed auto transmission. Then, in true hot rod style, driving the wheels is the differential from an S-model Jaguar. Drivetrain aside, this car is really about style. The attention to detail, especially the chrome work, makes this car what it is. The 50 style white wall tyres, brass radiator and bug-eye headlamps, combined with the intricate exhaust system and bodywork, make this hot rod shine. The successor to the Model T was the Model A, also a favourite for hot rodding. The Ford Model A was produced between 1927 and 1931, and like the Model T, this car came in a variety of body styles, none of them escaping hot rod conversions. There's something about black and chrome that just says classic, no matter how hot a car is under the hood. And this 1928 Model A Ford pickup is no exception. Built on original steel, this mean machine of old has kept its unique charm, while turning to the dark side as a hot rod. Fiberglass guards have been used to replace the dilapidated originals, but you would never know looking at it. The Pasadena pickup features a Chevrolet C1 400, which is the big daddy of the Mighty Mouse, with 6.6 litres or 400 cubic inches. With a 104.8mm bore as standard, the 400 produced 265 horsepower out of the factory. All this horsepower was harnessed to a THR 700 4-speed auto transmission. Sitting on some low Jaguar S rear suspension and independent front springs, the pickup looks mean and fast, but still holds its stock heritage. The paint is reminiscent of the Japan black of old, but the extensive use of chrome wherever possible adds an undeniable sparkle to this mean machine. The interior of this workhorse has been finished in burgundy velour. With its classic lines, traditional woody tray top and attention to detail, this hot rod is built to be admired. Well, by most anyway. Fords were a favourite amongst hot rodders, as they are easy and cheap to get hold of and easy to modify. The 1930s models are still popular today. Maybe it's the original styling that has worked its way into our consciousness, but when we look at 30s Fords, they just look like hot rods. This is a 34 two-door, immaculately presented in burnt orange. The custom paint on this vehicle really needs to be seen in person to appreciate, but even on camera you can see the depth in the finish. Running a worked Ford 351 Cleveland engine into the popular Turbo 700 automatic transmission, this all-steel classically styled street racer has everything, including suicide doors. For the uninitiated, suicide doors are the doors hinged at the centre pillar, opening from the front of the car. The suicide bit comes into it if you consider opening one of these doors while travelling at high speed. Spectacular levels of chrome and finish are complemented by a leather interior and all the little details that you just don't see on modern cars today. This is a true show car, and with its hood down would still turn heads, even though the styling is very close to the original 1934 vehicle. Of course, Ford weren't the only car maker building cars, and the 1930s Chevrolets are hot property for hot rod fans. This Chevy Master sedan town car has been given a traditional hot rod treatment. Before we even go into the details, let's look at the flame job. Flaming paintwork has become the hallmark of the hot rod scene, and is probably the most recognised feature of hot rod culture. It's one thing to get a car to standard like this Chev, but to go that one step further and create a custom personality in the Duco is a true hot rodder's domain. Often cars are chosen for their sporty look before any modifications are done, so two-door cars are selected more often than not. That makes this Chev a little more unique, as it is the four-door model, with suicide doors for the back passengers. All original steel, this town car is now for shorter city dwellers, as it's had a few inches chopped off the top with a lowered roof. This black burning beast has a 350 under the hood, a turbo 350 auto trans and a custom exhaust. Thanks to the roof chop, it now has custom glass throughout and a traditional but very cool black leather custom interior. It's big, it's mean, and it's got a flame job, and it's a four-door. You could call it a family car if you like. This 1937 Roadster, on the other hand, could never be accused of being anything like a family runabout. Obsession is its name. Extreme styling has moved the shape of this sleek ride miles away from its original persona, with a modern twist. Featuring a chopped top, big wheels, a unique grille and a host of smooth lines. Notice there's no door handles, no mirrors either. What's really sleek about this ride is a James Bond style license plate device that keeps the plate out of harm's way while you're driving. This low two-tone bullet sits on fully independent suspension and powers along with a 383 fuel-injected Chev. A turbo 350 auto trans with a low-car shifter gives some fun back to the driver. Custom disc brakes ensure you stop, eventually, and the low-profile tyres drop the car even closer to the ground, ensuring you are well below the eye line of the average pickup or SUV. With a build time of 2 years, Obsession hardly seems worthy. Then again, the cash investment in this mean machine would definitely be on the side of obsessive. This kind of styling on a hot rod is very reminiscent of a 90s conversion, where it was popular to round lines out even more than the 30s, giving hot rods a more modern aesthetic. The trend has now gone back to a more traditional approach, but Obsession is an excellent slice of hot rod heaven. This is a perfect example of a Model T street rod. Haven't we seen this car already? And what's a street rod? Well, we had you fooled, kind of. Model Ts are not so common now. They're expensive collector's items and can be a pretty pricey blank canvas for a hot rod enthusiast. But all is not lost to Model T fans, as like this example, fiberglass and even steel replica bodies and chassis are readily available. It's not just Model Ts. 30s Fords, 50s Chevrolets, even 60s Mustangs can be built from scratch if you so desire, kind of like a kit car. And it's not a new idea. Alternate bodies for Model Ts were already available in the 1920s while the car was still in production. And full hot rod kits are not new either, as this 60s news clip from England shows.
Do it yourself. Do it yourself is the order of the day, but if you buy a do-it-yourself motor car for assembly, you'll think a hurricane has hit the garden. It'll drive you back to the blueprints. It could cost you anything from £300 to less than 200, depending on what engine and components you choose. And see how the problem sorts itself out. Magic and you can put whatever finishing touches you like to its fiberglass body. Motoring correspondents like Dennis Holmes of the Daily Mail reckon that these car kits are going to set a new trend for young people about town because, as you see, you can put together your own unique hot rod. The chassis has been designed to take a wide variety of engines and etceteras built for production line models, which means that your do-it-yourself fun car can be tailor-made to your own taste. You can make it from all sorts of second-hand spare parts. '81 fun cars were sold the very first day the project was launched. They look fun, and they're far safer, you'd say, and far less antisocial than those high-powered motorbikes.
Yes, even if you were a square and owned a castle, you could be an English hot rodder in the 60s. Now though, you may need to sell a castle to reach the top of the hot rod game. It's not about building a cheap fun car. Creating a street rod from scratch can be an expensive exercise, especially if you were looking to compete with the likes of this amazing vehicle at your local hot rod show. This is the Juice TR. Impressive, isn't it? The Juice TR is a one-of-a-kind. The body was created by Boyd Coddington. Coddington was famous for creating hot rods with elegance and style, and is credited as being one of the instigators of the 90s revival in hot rod culture. He also had his own TV show in the US about, you guessed it, hot rods. Boasting the classic 350 Chev under the hood, it looks spectacular with the Motec 8 throttle body induction system. Again, the power plant is married to a T400 auto transmission. The suspension is all Boyd Coddington Pro Ride, and stopping power is provided by completely custom-built disc brakes and plumbing. On this mean machine, the paint job alone would cost more than your average brand new family sedan, or two. Is it worth it? You be the judge. To finish off this amazing ride is an all-leather custom interior with stainless steel trim. And finally, it's clean. Really clean. You see, this car has won multiple competitions and taken out top honours at hot rod shows, but it's never been driven on the road. This really is a work of art, not a plaything for rich English aristocrats. As the design of cars changed, so did hot rodding. Hot rods were pre-World War II vehicles, often with running boards, basic fenders over the wheels, and externally mounted headlights. Hot rod construction began by simply removing some of these parts to lighten the vehicle, modifying the suspension to lower the car, while adding as much power as possible to the lighter bodies. It was a relatively simple process, and style was a secondary concern in the early days. The 1950s signalled a new era in automotive design. Wheels were hidden under fenders, which were subsequently under hoods, which for the first time were almost the entire width of the car, rather than just the engine lids. The whole look and build of the modern 50s car was a complete change, and one that would ensure hot rodders would have nothing new to work with. Of course, our desire to create something new never wavered, and the custom car was born. So what's a custom car, or custom as they are commonly referred to? Customs are usually post-1948 vehicles, often with body, engine and especially paint modifications. The use of chrome accessories is popular, as is body mods. These include chopping, which involves removing the horizontal section of the upper part of the car to lower the roofline. Sectioning, removing a horizontal section of the body to shorten the height of the vehicle. And channeling, which is the practice of removing parts of the floor pan where it touches the frame, to lower the whole body of the car. As in hot rodding, there are no rules, and customs can have any number of creative modifications. What all customs do have in common is a unique look, exclusive to their heritage, and a multitude of fans and devotees. Chevrolets from the 50s are cool, no denying it. Even without customising, a 50s Chev has street credibility. There's no credibility issues with this platinum powerhouse. This is a 1956 Chevrolet Sports Coupe, with a little work done. Well, a lot of work done. The classic lines of the 56 hide a monster within. Under the hood is a 350 Chevy Motown with two 600 DP Holly carbs and extractors. What does that mean? It means 550 horsepower. The engine has also been lowered to accommodate all the top-end works. Plus, a fully customised exhaust system has been built around the heavily worked power plant. A Turbo 400 has been fully manualised and runs into a 9-inch diff, so this baby is cool, fast and fun to drive. All new rack and pinion steering has been installed, and the radiator has been hidden to show off the blown 350 Chev motor. From its original stock heritage, the car was completely stripped. All the rust was cut out and new steel welded in. 6 inches of the parcel shelf has been removed, so the rear passengers get a more laid-back ride. The original body was tubbed out, with new steel contoured in to allow for big rubber to get that mean street machine look without compromising the original lines. With all new glass, new chrome and hidden airbag suspension all round, this Chevrolet sits low for show. Inside, it features a reproduction interior with moulded door skins. Electric windows and hidden locks finish off this amazing metal ride. With an estimated value of around $150,000 US, this ride is cool and worth some cold hard cash. It's not just sedans that get worked over. This green machine has won multiple awards, and for good reason. A 1952 Ford step-side pickup, this vehicle is a true labour of love, revived from a total wreck to its now spectacular finish. The original steel has been fully customised with smooth seams and a rich green Duco. The restored grille has had the teeth chromed. Suspension comes from a Jaguar Series 3 XJS at the front end with airbag suspension. Leaf springs support the rear. This truck sits low and mean. Under the hood is a 302 Cleveland with serious headwork and a lumpy can. Believe it or not, this green beast runs on LPG gas and does it well. The Cleveland runs into a C10 Auto Trans with a 9-inch diff, pushing power to the rear wheels of this weighty machine. A custom alloy radiator, disc brakes all round, and body smoothing on the inner guards and even on the engine bay firewall lift this custom ute into a class of its own. To top off the quality finish is an amazing interior featuring Connolly leather, suede and an African springbok trim. Not one for the animal lovers. Built over 4.5 years, the 52 stepside has had over $80,000 spent in time and money, all in a suburban backyard. Just because a car is custom doesn't mean it has to be so wildly modified you'd have to mortgage the house just to fund it. It's not an over-the-top job, but there is a place for restraint in the business of customs. This 1959 Ford mainline pickup started its days as an everyman workhorse, built for moving you and your gear around. And it still has that persona, even though it's been given the custom treatment. Under the hood is a 289 Windsor. It's a small block, compact V8 that can produce around 300 horsepower. And it's the same unit used by Shelby for the 65 GT350. The mainline features a 4-speed manual top loader and a 9-inch diff. Original steel highlights the chrome. And the custom blue and white trim maintains the classic two-tone look, often found in vehicles of the era. It just goes to show a car can look great and reflect your love of the art that is a classic custom motor vehicle, without being an overstated pimp ride that turns heads but costs the earth. Like we said earlier, there are no rules, and customs can be mild or wild. We started customs on a Chev, so let's finish there. This rev-head red rocket is a 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air, not as modified as the Platinum 56 we saw earlier. The Bel Air is a beautiful example of a customised Chev, with minimal over-the-top body mods. The elegant lines of the 57 are highlighted by an unbelievable level of chrome and polished alloy and steel. There is no part of this car that doesn't shine, and it's a perfect showcase for the model. In the sizable engine bay sits an all-alloy polished big block Chev 40. A nice addition to this machine is the paintwork under the hood, highlighting the polished components. The TH400 transmission and alloy Moser locker differential are fully polished. Matter of fact, anything that can be polished on this car has been, and anything that hasn't been polished has been meticulously painted this stunning red. Even fully smooth C4 alloy A-arms at the front and the stainless steel 4-bar rear end have a unique sheen, unlike any other. The custom interior in the red Bel Air is an incredible trimming job in colour matching alone. Nothing has been left to chance inside this car, and the effect is nothing short of spectacular. Combined with a custom dashboard, the red 57 Bel Air is a sight to see. And so it should be. We've seen some pricey rides on this show, but nothing like the investment made into this polished wonder. It's only hearsay and rumour, but allegedly this car has swallowed around $320,000 US. What's it worth? We can only wonder. While we're on the subject of customs, let's not forget the two-wheel kind. When it comes to customising motorbikes, there are really only two categories: customs and choppers. Choppers are motorcycles, chopped and modified, but originally rolled off a production line. Construction of a bike is so much more flexible than a car. Pretty much anything goes. Again, it was the post-war servicemen in the US who initiated the chopper movement, taking old inexpensive bikes and modifying them in a similar fashion to the hot rod trend. Custom motorcycles are often one-of-a-kind labours of love, as opposed to the stockers or stock bikes which are mass-produced. Custom bikes can be a combination of various components from multiple makes and models, but generally complete masterpieces built from scratch, which is a popular way to go now, and many companies across the globe offer the discerning custom bike buyer the opportunity to ride something truly unique. Whether it's a custom or chopper, the one thing these machines have in common is a thirst for performance and the classic chopper look. Long forks are the backbone of most custom bikes and choppers, as is loads and loads and loads of chrome. Custom paint jobs have also become a class all of their own, with spectacular airbrushing and multicoloured Ducos featuring on most modified motorcycles. Custom bikes don't come much more imposing than this serious showstopper chopper. What you're looking at is the Prozac Gotham City Series 2 Custom Chopper. Yes, it's a mouthful, and we think it would be a handful on the road. The Gotham features a complete custom frame which is full chrome moly, with a single-sided swing arm 360 rear tyre, the first of its kind in the world. The grunt comes from a 190 horsepower supercharged 125 cubic inch engine with hand shift. Obviously the rear wheel is massive, so we won't even go into size. Suffice to say that our cameraman did go into orbit around the planet-sized mass of rubber. We have to mention the chrome. There's so much chrome on this machine, any way you look at it you can see 100 reflections of yourself, handy for fixing your helmet hair. The level of finish and attention to detail. The custom paint. The chrome. The metal fabrication. This is a chopper even Batman would be happy to ride if it came in black. Of course, he'd have to borrow the cash from Bruce Wayne, as only he could afford the $200,000 US price tag. Believe it or not, this is a road bike. Sure, it's custom, but it has been built to ride. We suspect to ride fast. Supplying the power is a 155 cubed twin-cam R&R race engine with a 6-speed Baker's billet box and a 5-inch high-tech open primary. This bike is so high-tech, in fact you need a laptop to fire up the ignition system. The front end is mean street with Renegade rims and a 360 rear tyre. PM caliper brakes supply the stopping power, and we imagine they would come in quite handy on this beast. Holding this chopper all together is an NBC frame. NBC being nothing but customs in the US, not the TV station. This is a one-of-a-kind custom mule with a spectacular airbrush paint job, seats upholstered in Stingray leather, and airbags to lift the bike into riding position. It It took the owner 2 years to build and cost over $75,000 US, not including time. It's also won every custom bike comp it's been entered into, which is only 2 so far, but it's still a mean machine. This is another chopper built by the same team that brought you the Gotham City Series 2. The Independent Cranes bike is a more budget-conscious chopper. A fully custom frame supports the 140 horsepower power plant. This chopper boasts custom exhaust, handlebars, fenders, and tank. It features air suspension, a 300 rear, and is loaded with tech, including digital mirrors, internal controls, and digital taillights and accessories. Not as pricey as its muscly brother, the IC bike fits a tighter budget and is valued around the $75,000 mark. Not bad for all that bling. Like the title says, hot rods and mean machines, and they don't come any meaner than muscle cars. What's a muscle car? Well, it can be a little more difficult to define than hot rods and customs. Muscle car is a label given to a select few high-performance production cars that are not sports cars, generally referring to Australian and American models. Muscle cars are usually two-door, rear-wheel drive, medium-sized cars with powerful V8 power plants. Muscle cars are generally regarded as classic high-power vehicles from the late 60s to the early 70s. Interestingly, the title muscle car is a relatively new term, as when in production in those early days, they were often referred to as supercars. Working along the lines of the hot rodders, a muscle car is a lightweight production car with a big engine under the hood. As the name suggests, they were strong and fast in a straight line, but lacked the sophisticated engineering of a true sports car. And this was reflected with a relatively low price tag. Of course, it would be too easy to throw all the muscle cars into one category, as their size and power varied so much. Now, muscle cars are divided into 3 groups: mid-size muscle, compact muscle, and pony car muscle models. Muscle car enthusiasts are still polishing and tuning their machines even today, and some muscle metal have become famous the world over. Probably one of the most famous muscle cars is the Ford Mustang. The first Mustangs were built in 1964 in the US, and the car was the most successful launch of any Ford car since the Model A. What set the Mustang apart was styling, as this 60s clip shows.
Sometimes the stylist's experimental car can be moved almost without change to the assembly line. Such a car was Mustang II. What gives this car its look of total performance? First, inside. An interior that's inviting, comfortable, and sporty, with an instrument panel that's deeply padded and hooded. Now outside, the unique grille, long hood, low top, and short rear deck. Sculptured side panels to lower the profile. Round wheel openings to emphasize the wheels and suggest power and performance. This is the moment of truth, the production car. The work of the stylist, begun over 20 months ago, has been translated into fabric, rubber, glass, and metal. Now the public will tell him how well he has succeeded.
It may not be the first official muscle car. Popular thought gives that credit to the 1949 Oldsmobile Rocket 88, but the Ford Mustang sent shockwaves through the performance car market with its good looks and high power performance. So popular was the Mustang that it had its own class, pony muscle or pony car. The Ford Mustang is one of the few muscles to continue production since its inception and now into its 5th generation. What followed was a range of cars with similar styling principles and small form powerful engines. Priced to appeal to young men, the muscle cars were the everyday man's hot rod. Chevrolet's effort was the Camaro. When it was presented to the press in 1966, they were told by Chevrolet's marketers, a Camaro is a small vicious animal that eats Mustangs. Although the 60s and 70s were dominated by Mustangs, many other car manufacturers still managed to muscle their way into the market. Pontiac introduced the Firebird in the same year that Chevrolet launched the Camaro. First generation Firebirds had the characteristic Coke bottle styling, while the second gen models took shape as the familiar Trans Am. What all these mean machines have in common is big V8 power plants driving the rear rubber and loads of bad attitude. Official classics aside, most people associate US performance machines as classic muscle. Sure, they may have rolled off the production line as sports cars, but fans of muscle have adopted them as their own. And muscle cars are still being manufactured, with cars like the Monaro or GTO leading the charge. New models of the Camaro are available, and they still retain that muscle car look. Although, just like hot rods, it seems they're more aimed at cashed-up car fanatics than the young drivers they were designed to appeal to in the 60s. And what does the future hold for hot rods and mean machines? Can the average auto fan modify a low-cost car to make a personal statement on 2 or 4 wheels? Is there a place for hot rodders in this new millennium, where prices are high, fuel is harder to come by, and electric cars look to be the next big thing? If you're a fan of modifying cars, there's no rules, and everyday transport is turned into street machines every day. Sometimes they can be extroverted, sensational steel, or more subtle statements of undeniable power, hidden under an exterior of normality. Or like this little road rocket, they can be a mash of power and expression, squeezed into a budget. Volkswagen Beetles are becoming the victims of custom car fans, as they are readily available and easy to work with. And of course, let's not forget those extreme sound systems, shaking the windows around your neighbourhood, with more woofer than a dog sled team. There's the tuner car scene that's become the modern-day hot rod, with its own subculture and quest for high-performance head-turning vehicles. Even its own racing style that's gaining popularity in the mainstream, drift racing or drifting. The important thing is, as cars age, they become tomorrow's toys for creative mechanics and mechanical artists. Who knows? The car you last drove in could end up a hot rod or mean machine of the future.